All right, now, Armenia has come out with a new residency by investment program. It's a 3-year residency. It's basically a paper residency. You don't physically have to be there. There are some things I really like about this, but there are some big negatives here too, which I'm going to go over with you. But for the right type person, it would be excellent depending on who you are and what you're willing to do on this. Now, let me go through a few things with you on this. Now, Armenia has this program. It's nearly free. And this came out in my newsletter. And they were talking about it's a 3-year path to Armenian citizenship. And but it's only going to cost you a few $1,000s to do this. And you can literally get the citizenship after, you can apply for it after 3 years. And you don't have to be there, okay? Now, some things can change on this, and they're saying this is not like Panama, where, Panama, you can apply for the passport after 5 years, but you don't get it. You don't get it even 10 years. They're saying it's not different. It's different than that, and you're not going to have that sort of results. But there's some things in here that are kind of fishy that I'm going to tell you about, that I'm going to give you my opinion on it, then you can go from there. And there's one huge negative I'll give you at the end. But for a few $1,000s, you can get this permanent residency in Armenia, and it places you on a 3-year path to citizenship without any minimum stay requirements. This is the neat thing about it. Now, I'm going to go through the practical steps, the costs, the timelines involved in getting this citizenship. And one of the things they talked about is, why would you want the Armenian citizenship? Now, why not as valuable as a EU or a Mercosur citizenship in terms of settlement rights or visa-free travel? Armenian citizenship offers a number of distinct advantages. Now, the Armenian passports offer visa-free travel. This is the problem that I don't like. The visa-free travel, for what you're getting, if you're trying to get the passport, you're only going to get 69 countries and territories, including China, Russia, Turkey, and most countries in South America. Now, more thanks to the country's membership in the Eurasian Economic Union's supranational settlement bloc, Armenian citizens can freely move and settle permanently within the territories of all the member states, which include Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Belarus, subject to having employment. Now, the Eurasian Economic Union, which is called the EAEU settlement bloc, citizens of each participating state have the right to obtain residency in the others. This is the thing that's kind of neat. You can literally switch to the other countries, and then you can apply for citizenship after, so many years living in there. Now, you can also pass Armenian citizenship to your children. Armenia offers citizenship by descent to those who can demonstrate Armenian origin, no matter how many generations ago. But this only applies to those who are Armenian ethnicity and not those of other nationalities who have naturalized. So, if you want to go on Ancestry.com, it goes way back. You might have some great-great-grandparents that literally would fit in this category. You might have to go back 8 grades, who knows, but there's no limit on this if you can prove it. And Ancestry.com would be a good option. That's one of the best ways you can go back and look. Now, there are no restrictions on dual citizenship, and should the need arise in the future, renounce your Armenian citizenship is a simple procedure. Now, but there is another process afoot that could see the value of the Armenian citizenship rise sharply in the not too distant future. Now, this March, the European Parliament passed a resolution confirming that the country meets the Article 49 requirements of the Maastricht Treaty, which officially qualifies Armenia to apply for EU membership. Now, should Armenia become a EU member, its citizens will have the same settlement rights as the other member countries of the EU and EEA supranational settlement bloc, allowing them to live permanently anywhere in the bloc's 30-member countries. Now, let me tell you what the neat thing about this is if you get the passport here, you can literally just float right into Ireland. Ireland's got a dynamite passport. You can apply for that in 6 years for basically no reason, because now you got EU membership. Now, Armenian permanent residency through a minimum investment requirement This is the neat thing about this. Now, the first step on the path to Armenian citizenship is to obtain permanent residency. This is all that's really required. You really don't have to live there. Now, they could change that while this is going on, so that's something that could happen. But there's a big negative, which I'm going to give you at the end, which some people, might not be a big negative to them, but it is for me. But I'll give you that. Armenia offers a straightforward residency process for business owners and investors through the Armenian Permanent Residency Program. Notable advantages include the ability to apply remotely, a streamlined application process, and no minimum stay or investment requirements. This is the neat part, okay? Now, permanent residence permits, which require renewal every 5 years, allow sponsors to bring immediate and extended family members. Residents enjoy access to social services, affordability, health care insurance, and also a favorable path to citizenship after 3 years, which I'm going to talk about here in just a few minutes here now. Now, in Armenia, residency is accessible to those engaged in business activities, which the Armenian Civil Code defines broadly to include both active ownership, such as sole proprietorship or holding a majority stake, and passive ownership, holding a minority stake. Now, while many clients opt to register a business in Armenia to capitalize on the lower tax rates, which run anywhere from 0 to 10% for small businesses, and remember, this is on worldwide income too. Those who prefer not to manage their own businesses can, for example, invest just a few $1,000s in a social business to qualify for residency. Now, investors or business owners can apply directly for a long-term residence permit. While formally termed permanent, it requires renewal every 5 years. That's pretty much it. I mean, you don't have to even show up. It's you can literally get a power of attorney to do this for you. Now, in 2022, Armenia issued a residence permit to 16,659 foreign nationals. Among these, 12,878 individuals received a 1-year temporary residence permit, and then 3,279 got a 5-year permanent residence permit, and then 502 a 10-year special residence permit. Now, Armenia stands out for its simple residency qualification process. Specifically, these are the things that you need to look at. Okay, applications can be submitted remotely using a power of attorney, which I just mentioned before. Applicants need only provide a valid passport, and for remote submissions, a medical certificate. And then authorities process applications within 90 days. Now, there are no minimum stay requirements, as I mentioned before. There is no minimum investment requirement. Holders of permanent residence permits can sponsor their spouse, children, siblings, parents, and even grandparents and grandchildren for residency. Upon obtaining residency, family members gain access to Armenian social services, include health care, education, and Social Security. Now, the steps involved in obtaining permanent residency in Armenia through business activity include this, and these are the things you're going to need to have. Document submission, initial registration as a shareholder or investor, and typically completed within 2 to 3 business days. Now, the residence permit application, after registering as a shareholder, the residence permit application process takes approximately 45 to 50 days, and then culminate in the issuance of the residency card. And then you got the appointment scheduling. Due to high demand, appointments with the immigration office may require scheduling several weeks or even months in advance. Now, tax implications of becoming a resident in Armenia include this. Obtaining a residence permit in Armenia does not automatically confer tax residency. This is the great thing about this. You can literally get the passport without paying the tax. Okay, now tax residency is primarily determined by the duration of stay within a calendar year. The critical threshold is 183 days or more within the year. The key is don't exceed that. Okay, you still keep your residency. Now, individuals who do not spend more than 183 days in the country but still wish to establish tax residency in Armenia, for example, due to substantial personal or business connections that centralize their economic interest in the country, may apply for tax residency and may obtain the tax residency permit. Now, notable tax benefits and regulations include the following. Okay, and this is the neat thing about some things I like about this. They do have good tax laws. No tax on capital gains. Armenia doesn't typically tax individuals on capital gains from the sale of securities, real estate, or other assets, regardless of whether these gains are generated domestically or internationally. This is a big plus. You have tax-exempt income types. Now, certain types of income, such as insurance and pension payouts like Social Security, are exempt from taxes, making this an advantageous option for retirees. There is no inheritance, gift, or wealth taxes. Now, Armenia does not levy taxes or gifts, inheritance, or net worth. Favorable taxation of foreign income. Tax residents must generally pay taxes on global income at flat rates of 20% on business income. Now, there's 10% on interest income and then 5% on dividends. Now, I don't like that, but one way you can avoid this is don't stay there, but don't exceed the day limit I just gave you earlier. That's the key right there. But however, Armenia does have double taxation agreements with approximately 50 countries, which can significantly reduce the tax liabilities for foreign income. So if you've got a withholding tax from a lot of equities and stuff, typically what happens if it exceeds the 5%, it zeroes out in Armenia. But if you're invested in places that pay out dividends, but they don't have a withholding tax, then you would be hit with a 5% dividend tax on that you would have to pay. But remember, that's if you're in there so many days a year where you have to qualify to pay taxes on worldwide income. All right, now, gaining Armenian citizenship after 3 years of residency. All right, this is the part you need to know. There's some negatives in this, okay, which I would not be myself willing to do, but some of y'all, if you're younger, you might be willing to do this. Now, Armenian nationality law allows for naturalization of individuals who have held permanent residency for 3 years. In practice, the residency status of the individual need not have been permanent for the 3 years. I do like that part, okay? The Migration Service will accept applicants who have maintained a residence permit in the country for 3 years. Now, moreover, there is no formal or informal requirement to have spent a certain amount of time physically in the country. Love that. The formal requirement is that the applicant must have been a permanent resident for 3 years. As a consequence, when we say permanent resident, we're talking on paper. You don't have to physically be there. As a consequence, the individual who has never set foot in the country can still apply for citizenship as long as they've held the residence permit for 3 years. Now, note, however, that while the Migration Service currently does not count the number of days, focus instead on the presence of a residence permit over the last 3 years, this practice could change. So the government could come in and say, hey, all of a sudden they put this new thing and they stick it in where you got to be there so many years or so many days in that 3 year period to legally qualify for the citizenship. Right now, he's saying, they don't have that. Now, for example, they might later interpret permanent resident to mean actual residence for a certain number of days. And immigration in these countries, especially countries that are just not on top of things, you could get somebody in that immigration office that says, hey, man, you just were never here. Wait a minute, that's not what the guy told me. This is what I'm trying to tell you right here. And this happened a little bit in Portugal, okay? There were problems with this, and there were some people that debated the courts in the court system in Portugal and had the same damn type of thing as this, okay? And you had a lot of people complaining because they were giving out the passports and people were not even living in Portugal. And you could have the same problem here. Now, moreover, even if the Migration Service's interpretation is favorable, now we can't guarantee, he's talking about here, that the judiciary would uphold this view if an applicant's rejection were appealed in court. This is the problem. And in other words, it sounds to me like this is the thing I don't like about it, is if you don't plan to pick your butt up and move over there, okay? I would not do this, especially if you're wanting to get the passport. If you're wanting just to get the residency, but if you're wanting to get the residency and not move there, why in the hell would you want to do this anyway? Because you're still going to have to take a chance on the government giving you the passport. But I got one other big whopper here I'm going to tell you at the end. That's the huge negative. And unlike many countries with nationality laws that formally allow naturalization after being a resident for a certain number of years, what they're going to do is they want you to take a test, a language test. Now, let me go through this a little bit more in detail on how they're going to do this. You don't have to be fluent in the language, but you're going to have to know enough to where you're going to have to sit down and do quite a bit of study. It's going to take a lot of hours to do this. And what you're going to have to do is, let me just find it here real quick here, because I'm skipping a lot of this crap. And there is, okay, this is the way it works. What they're talking about here is even what most consider the biggest obstacle to the naturalization in Armenia, the requirement that applicant pass a civics exam administered in the Armenian language. This is the part I hate, okay? Is not as insurmountable they're talking about as it seems at first. Well, I think it is, but I'm going to just read it to you so you can see if you want to go through this. There's a test, it's 33-question multiple choice exam where the questions appear in a predictable order. This allows applicants to memorize the answers. Well, I got a feeling they're gonna sort that out, okay? I don't think they're going to keep that the same, especially if it's public right now that people can just memorize this. This is typically what happens is immigration people get enthusiastic about marketing crap that just doesn't work the way they say it works. The worst thing you can do is pay thousands of dollars. You get in this and you're saying, hey, I'm just hoping and praying that it's going to be like this. I'll memorize the stuff. And I'll tell you something, memorizing something in a different language, man, if you can't read it, you're going to have to just memorize the characters. It could be really tough. And I got a feeling they're not going to have it in a certain order. I got a feeling they're going to mix this crap up, and then you've wasted all that time. Now, this is the thing I hate about this is you're playing Russian roulette with a lot of time and money that you're putting in on this. Now, when I say money, it's not that much, but you will pay several $1,000s to do this, and there's going to be a lot of hitches along the way. Now, applicants must also fill out a short form in Armenian. Okay, so you're going to have to fill this form out in Armenian. So you're going to have to know enough to get this form filled out. Now, while these elements require some familiarity with the written language, they're saying here that there is no requirement to speak or verbally understand Armenian. So they're saying you got to just memorize this stuff, okay? Now, let's look at the disadvantages of Armenian citizenship. That was one right there, but they didn't kind of emphasize this as a disadvantage. I think that's probably the biggest disadvantage. There's another one that's pretty big, though, especially if you got kids. All males ages 18 to 27 must, in principle, take part in a 24 months of 24 months that you're going to have 27 males that are 27 years old. Hold on just a second. Males ages 18 to 27 must in principle take part in 24 months of mandatory military service. In Armenia, the prospect of armed military conflict is not merely hypothetical because on various occasions in recent years, the country has been at war with its neighbor, Azerbaijan. Now, however, after age 27, males who have not completed their mandatory military service, for example, if they have been living abroad, can obtain an exemption from service in exchange for a variable fee. In other words, you can pay yourself out of this, typically amount to several $1,000s. But if you got kids or you got grandkids or great grandkids and stuff, this might concern you if they're going to be going with you or they want to get that passport, because this is once you get the passports when they hit you with this. Now, after 37 years of age, the military service requirement lapses permanently. Another hypothetical disadvantage is that Armenian citizens are not admitted to Azerbaijan, but there's nothing stopping you from traveling there, on your other passport. Relations with Turkey are also not the best. My summary of this, I would tell you, it sounds really good. If you're willing to move there, learn the language, and you don't mind this military stipulation, if you're over the age limits I gave you and you're not going to take your kids with you and you're willing to learn the language, yeah, I'd say this is pretty damn good. I'd say that the passport's not very good. You're not going to get many visa-free countries, but they do have pretty good tax laws. And, so, I mean, this is, it just depends on how hard you want to work at this. And there are chances that you're going to have to take. If you do not move there, will you be able to get the passport? And that's why I tell you, if you're not willing to move over there and learn the language, then I would skip it. I mean, that's just the way I feel. Anyway, if you want to know more on this, if you want to legally get around high income taxes and get your income taxes to zero, or how to get a second passport as quick as 4 to 8 months, do 3 things. Hit the subscribe button, the right of your screen right here, and you get new videos automatically as they come out. And number 2 is I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, put it below, and go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just ask for some help. And I look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.